Against the Ropes podcast.
Contra las cuerdas.
Against the Ropes podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. AtR podcast. Gio Garcia here alongside Christian Mosqueda, 276, big heavyweights once again back in the building. Took a week off, but we're back. Got a lot to speak on. Of course, some fights that happened in the past couple weeks and some action coming up, more notably in August. But let's go ahead and get started, Chris.
Hey, we had to take a round off, Gio. You know, sometimes you got to take a round off. You know, you just got to win 7 out of 12, man. That's all you got to do. But yeah, what do you want to get started with, Gio? Again, there was some good action, 2 weeks worth of action. YouTube turned boxer. Jake Paul fought. You know, we got some Canelo Berlanga news. What do you want to start with?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start with Canelo, man. The face of boxing. Chris, we took a round off, but we won all the other 6 rounds. So we're all good. We're in the lead. We're still ahead. But yeah, let's go ahead and speak on Canelo. Obviously the latest news was that the fight with Berlanga was final. They're finalizing that. Do you believe this, Chris? And just initial thoughts before I go ahead and read that article that I just pulled up on there. Initial thoughts, if it happens, big if. How likely do you think is that this fight is next, and what do you think about this fight?
Yeah, it's a little shocking. Of course, when we think of Canelo, we want him to fight the very best fights that get us hyped and excited. But we got to be honest, Canelo has cleaned out much of that 168 division. If we had to be real, like there's not a whole lot left to pick and choose from. And of course, when you don't have that, the promoters and the powers that be, they have to go with what makes dollars sense. Again, it's a business. You know, they got to sell tickets, they got to sell, you know, pay-per-views, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, a Mexican versus Puerto Rican makes sense. Berlanga, you know, maybe a lot of people think he's still green, but hey, he can definitely put seeds that can sell that narrative. So I am a little surprised, and at the same time, I'm not. But how close is this to happening? I want to say 65%, 70%. I don't see too many other options that Canelo would want to take.
I would agree. Usually we don't come on here and talk about rumors, but this looks like it's pretty much done. I mean, Canelo always surprises us, it seems like. But, you know, with it being already end of July, you got August, and then you have September. So they need to come up with an opponent now. What is it? What are they saying? September 14th, I believe. That weekend, T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Mexico versus Puerto Rico. I'll go ahead and read a little bit of this article. Mexico's Alvarez, 61-2-2, is the undisputed champion at 168. But it's possible the IBF title won't be on the line as his mandatory defense is overdue. Canelo Berlanga will go head-to-head with UFC 306, the first sporting event to be held at the Sphere. Wow, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. But yeah, let's look at Berlanga, 27 years old, 22-0, 17 KOs from Brooklyn, New York, of Puerto Rican descent. His last fight was against Patrick McGrory in February. He got a knockout in that one. And let's go ahead and take a look at his resume. I mean, nothing impressive here. Obviously, we know that. As I said, 22-0, 17 knockouts, 27 years old. Of course, he had that huge streak at the beginning of his career where he was getting all those first round stoppages. You see him there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think 10, 11, 12. It was like 14, I believe it was, until he finally didn't get it and actually went to a decision there against Desmond Nicholson. That was in 2021. He made his pro debut in 2016. I think his big, I guess, breakthrough was during COVID. If you guys remember, he was fighting a lot during those top rank undercards. He's no longer with Top Rank. He's working over there with the boys at DAZN. So kind of makes sense for this fight to go ahead and happen. I would say his biggest win is probably this one right here, Romer Alexis Angulo. Couple names that you may recognize, but nothing too crazy on there. He fought once in 2023, only once surprisingly. Fought once this year, and if he wins the Canelo sweepstakes, Chris, man, that's a lottery for him. You know, with that thin, very thin resume at 27 years old, if he's able to win that Canelo lottery, it's life changing, obviously, and he's got to consider himself the luckiest man in the world if he indeed gets that fight.
Yeah, like you said, Gio, he is now with the zone peeps. Sometimes you just have to look at what promoters work with whom, which ones are under the same umbrella. That's pretty much going to give you, who Canelo's fighting next. And of course, a lot of people were clamoring Benavidez versus Canelo. We both know that fight, there's just too much animosity between both men. Canelo is in the driver's seat. He gets to pick who he fights. I would say David Benavidez is a more worthy opponent. Berlanga, like you said earlier, Gio, he was looking sensational when he was just knocking guys, left and right, making those ESPN and those mainstream shows highlights. But since he's gone to the top level, he has looked lackluster. There's even been some bouts where people are like, nah, he's too exposed. We would know what would happen if he goes up against the very best. So again, yeah, you have that fan base in Puerto Rico versus Mexico. You have that narrative, but it's kind of tough to get excited over at Berlanga versus Canelo. He's got the youth factor and he's got power, but it's hard for me at least to get excited for that, Gio. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I agree. I think as of late, I think obviously Canelo I think I've said this in 2018 or 2019 when he got that crazy DAZN contract. I said people are going to complain about Canelo's future opponents because by that time he already had a Hall of Fame career. He had already faced all his toughest opponents, Triple G, Mayweather, Lara, Trout, Cotto, all those guys. And there wasn't very much on the horizon. Obviously David Benavidez has inserted his name in that mix now. But if you look at his resume as well, very thin. He's 27 years old as well. And no, I agree. To answer your question, hard to get excited about this one just because Canelo is miles ahead of a guy like Berlanga. But kind of sticking to that Benavidez topic, I just saw this right now. I'm gonna go ahead and Google it to see if it's indeed true. But right here, you see this tweet on the left side. It says David Benavidez has decided to stay at light heavyweight, meaning he will be mandatory for the Arthur Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol winner, but vacate his WBC quote-unquote interim belt at super middleweight and no longer be mandatory for Canelo. WBC president Mauricio Suleiman has confirmed. And obviously, I'm sure we'll be hearing more of that in the days to come. But if that is indeed true, I mean, once again, I'm scratching my head, right? Because, David Benavidez was finally going to become the mandatory. There's this false narrative in the world of boxing that he's been the mandatory for the past 3 years. He's actually never been the mandatory for Canelo. Go ahead and Google it. It's free. He was finally going to become the mandatory in March. He decided not to and fight Vosdik. And he was once again going to become the mandatory. During this summer, he asked for a 2-week extension to decide if he was going to stay at light heavyweight or go back down to 68. Seems like he wants to stay at light heavyweight. So once again, does he not want the fight? Does he not want to become the mandatory? Because this now tells us that he's turned down that mandatory status twice. Not once, but twice. He's staying at 175.
Yeah, again, there's a narrative that he's been the mandatory. There's a narrative that he's not. At the end of the day, let's keep it real. Canelo's the one that decides whether he fights these mandatories or not. He's fought them. He's fought them here and there before, but he's the one that chooses who he wants to fight in. And let's keep it real. If Canelo does not like Benavidez, if he doesn't like the guy, across from him talking smack, let's be real. He's not gonna want to fight the guy because he knows that comes with giving the guy a payday. So I think David is just over it. I think like he said it. You can believe this narrative or not. I think he truly believes in his heart that Canelo is holding those belts hostage. He does not want to fight him. Again, you can make your own assumptions there, but I have to at least respect David. He wants to move up to a bigger division with far more dangerous guys, in my opinion. So if he wants to test his mettle against these guys, you got to respect that a little bit, Gio. Again, I wouldn't favor him in those bigger weight classes. Again, there's weight classes for a reason. Just because you look sensational, in those lower weight classes does not mean that's gonna carry over. That's gonna transition to the light heavyweight division. But yeah, man, I think he's just trying to force the hand of Canelo, Gio. If he's able to tackle these bigger guys, these monsters, I think Canelo's gonna have to notice. Just to talk a little bit about Canelo and what he asked for when he wants to fight guys. He does ask for a resume. That's something that he's talked about before. And I think David, in the previous year, I think he's gotten those two names that should have gotten him a Canelo fight. But hey, it is what it is. C'est la vie. Again, I'm not too excited with Berlanga. It almost reminds me of a James Kirkland kind of fight for Canelo. So yeah, Berlanga's got to do something more, something pre-fight, building up the fight to make us get excited. But because since those knockouts have disappeared, so has the excitement.
Yeah, and here Canelo's last 5 fights. Jaime Munguia, of course, this Cinco de Mayo weekend, 2024. Before that, Charlo in September. John Ryder in Guadalajara in May of 2023. Gennady Golovkin in September 2022. And Dmitry Bivol, Cinco de Mayo weekend 2022. So that's how Canelo's coming into this fight. I showed you guys Berlanga, nothing crazy there. You see a lot more UDs rather than KOs, right? He started, as I said, with that first round KO streak, crazy streak at the beginning of his career. And that quote unquote hype has died down a little bit. But like I said, if he's able to get this fight, man, he's going to consider himself a very, very lucky guy. But as you said, there's not much right now, 168. I think Canelo has wiped that division already. He beat all the champions. Callum Smith, he has since gone up to 175. Billy Joe Saunders pretty much retired him. Caleb Plant is still around, but he did take that loss also to David Benavidez. He's trying to get himself kind of back in the mix now. And then Benavidez now is, you can say, officially moved up to 175. So not much there at 68. I know a lot of people were kind of surprised by that Munguia fight, you can say. Munguia kind of going up in weight, but I mean, where else is Canelo gonna get an opponent? I think he's kind of wiped out. 160, I think, by default by beating Gennady Golovkin, and now 168 as well. 175 is where those waters get a little deep, so not sure he goes back up to 75. People forget that that fight with Kovalev, he struggled a little bit. Many people had that fight even up until that knockout in that 11th round. So I know a lot of people want him to go back up, probably get that Dimitri Bivol fight or Arthur Beterbiev, but I mean, we know those guys are a little bigger, man, a little stronger. There's a big difference, and those two are gonna fight each other. So, hey, maybe if Benavidez can challenge one of those guys and actually get a win, then maybe Canelo, will give him that opportunity. But like I said, Benavidez has now had 2 chances this year to become mandatory, and it seems like he himself has turned those 2 opportunities down. So, um, I don't know. We can give our opinions, but I mean, it is what it is, right? As far as this fight, like I said, they have what, a month and a half, maybe a month and 3 weeks to kind of promote it, to if they are gonna announce it, to promote it, get all that. Like they said, I guess they're competing with the UFC that day. It's Canelo. People are still gonna watch. People are still gonna pay. People are still gonna go to Vegas, to go watch him fight. So, um, he's one of a kind in that sense. He could kind of fight whoever he wants and still, sell, still make his 35, 40 mil. We'll see if this fight is officially finalized, probably by the time we come back next week. But it seems like you, just like myself, wouldn't be surprised if it actually happens.
Yeah, like we said, there's slim pickings, Gio. Again, we mentioned, Canelo cleaning at 168. There hasn't been any young true buck that has, been coming up at 168 truly that's ready for him. They're all mostly green. They're not as experienced. They're just not there yet. And that's not Canelo's fault. Canelo he's just doing what he's doing, and that's winning with the guys available. Of course, 175 is probably a little bit too much for him. We saw that with the Bivol fight, and we've seen the monster that is Beterbiev. So, again, we already know that Canelo's already, fighting outside of his natural weight, which is, in my opinion, like 164. He's a small guy, what, 5'8", 5'8.5". So he's already overachieving, in my opinion. And again, the guys at 160, they're just, I don't know what they're doing, Joe. Again, we have a Islanded Lara that's way past his prime, but he's still got a title.
Yeah.
Everybody's avoiding Johnny Beck, and 160, 162. He's probably too small for Canelo. But yeah, again, there's slim pickings all around that 160 to 175 division for Canelo. So again, usually when we get guys that have been so great and then they're getting closer to that mid 35 geo, we worry for them because the next up and coming guy is coming, and that's not the case. It's not the case for Canelo. So he's gonna be fighting for maybe four to six fights, and I don't see a lot of competition around. So hopefully David is able to somehow convince Canelo, but I just know that the approach of disrespecting him, trying to get under his skin, that's not going to work, man. I think you need to take the respectful approach the way Munguia did to try to sweeten your way into a fight.
And Berlanga too. Staying on that topic, Berlanga too. It doesn't seem like he's ever disrespected Canelo. I
Yeah.
think I saw a video recently of Berlanga and Canelo in the same building, and Berlanga uh, just kind of said hi to him, respectfully. So yeah, I think Canelo's being petty, by not giving David Benavidez that opportunity and going with the guys around him, right? Like Munguia, Berlanga. Obviously, I think David Benavidez probably has maybe a little more popularity than those guys, maybe a little more popular. I'm sure they'll do bigger numbers with that fight, but as I said, I think Canelo's just being a little petty and giving the fight to the respectful guys, who've been waiting but not insulting him.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Jaime Munguia just signed to Top Rank. I don't know if you heard too.
Oh, I didn't know that. Nuts.
Yeah, so that's an interesting move. We'll see where they go, but going back to Johnny Beck, it seems like he was having trouble making 160 because he passed out. He was hospitalized before his fight last weekend. Uh, Raymond Murataya against Tammy Farmer ended up headlining that card. But Janibek after that came out and said basically a message to Lara and I think Adames like, hey, don't celebrate too early. I can still make 160 and I'm coming for those belts. As you said, those guys don't want to fight him. Johnny Beck kind of seen as the boogeyman at 160, and the other guys reluctant to get in the ring with him or unify those belts. But seems like Johnny Beck wants to give it another go at 160. And at some point during this podcast too, I mentioned Muratay against Farmer. We'll rewind to that fight, but yeah, we'll see what happens with this Canelo news. I think we can move on. Uh, but the truth of the matter is, Canelo can fight anybody. It's gonna sell. People are gonna watch. People are gonna talk bad, talk good, but people are gonna tune in. So we'll see. I think it happens just because how close we are to that September date.
Right now, Gio, what percentage of a chance do you give Berlanga against Canelo?
So I think, as we mentioned earlier, it's kind of difficult to get excited about this fight. But the one thing I do want to see is Canelo's chin. You know, when guys get older, usually one of the first things to go is chin, right? They say power is the last thing to go. Chin usually is where you start finding out, you know, how many miles are really on that body, how they're affecting, you know, that fighter. With Canelo, we haven't seen him hurt since Jose Cotto, way back when he was 19, right? None of the guys have been able to hurt him. None of the power punchers, Gennady Golovkin, Daniel Jacobs, who retired, lost to Shane Mosley Jr. and then retired. Guys like Kovalev weren't able to hurt Canelo, you know, the big guys. So I want to see, first of all, if Berlanga could catch him. I think Canelo will stand toe to toe with Berlanga at some point, just as soon as he finds out that Berlanga doesn't belong in that ring with him. I think he will go to toe to toe with him, and let's see how he takes that punch, right? And that's Berlanga's only chance, win by KO. So we'll see how old Canelo really is at 34. He has a ton of fights, close to 70 fights. So with that being said, I man, probably like 5% for Berlanga. Maybe 5%. I don't know if you have a higher number, but I just don't think he's ready at all. And his power hasn't been able to bail him out against some of these other guys, some of these guys who are nowhere near Canelo's level. You see a lot of UDs there lately. I just don't see him hurting or catching Canelo, and I 100% don't see him outboxing Canelo.
Yeah, usually when we see a fight that's a mismatch, we usually give him 20%, right? 25%, 30%. I was thinking those numbers, but then I was like, nah, it's too green, too one-dimensional. So I was gonna say something like 15%, 10 to 15%. But I mean, I'm not mad at you. Again, I think a part of that percentage that you gave him is just you're just not excited. You just feel like it's not going to be as competitive. Again, Berlanga does have youth. He does have power. I just think he's very one-dimensional, very David Lemieux, very just he doesn't have a whole lot of years to his game. At least not yet. So yeah, again, I do believe like he's gonna take the fight to Canelo, and if he can push him and make it close distance, he can have some success. But I don't see it with Canelo. Canelo, like you said, Joe, the chin is something that Canelo's always had. You know, like you said, the last time he got hurt was against Wladimir Goto way back when he was 19. The last time I saw him get hit flush was by Triple G, and he took it well. You know, you don't see his legs rattle the way some guys their legs go when they get hit clean. Again, Canelo has a good poker face. Even if he's maybe shook a little bit, his legs are able to absorb it. He doesn't show it. He keeps coming forward. So again, even with Bebo is not known for power. He just did enough to beat Canelo. He just mixed them, kept them at distance. Never really hurt him. Never really took chances because he knows Canelo would have tried to snuck an uppercut in there or a counter, which is Canelo's forte. But Yeah, man. I want to say 10 to 15% chance, which is not a lot.
10% says Adam. Big Bro says 0.01%. He says Berlanga don't got the skill.
That decimal point. No
He
respect.
went below 1.
Damn.
He said
It's tough.
Berlanga don't got the skills to catch Canelo clean. He says Canelo's only 33. He'll be all right. I think he's 34 now. Let's go ahead and check that.
I think 34. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's 34 now. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Clyde says he's a young 33. He's been so dominant. All those fights haven't worn on him like other greats like Chavez, who was done by 34. And yeah, that's the example that kind of came up in my mind. That Chavez, was it against Frankie Randall? He took that 1-2 and dropped. That was the first time we ever saw him hurt like that. He fell, sat him down. He lost that fight, and I think that's when we kind of saw like, oh man, Chavez wasn't the same, at that point. And he's mentioned before, I forget on what show it was, he mentioned that all the drugs and the alcohol caught up to him, and his resistance just wasn't the same, And after that fight, he still won, what was it, like 15 more fights or something like that. I think he had 106 wins in his career, but took a few losses and all that, but just wasn't the same, right? So we'll see if Canelo's chin, continues to hold up. As we said, he's taking punches from some of the best punchers in the game. All right. What a better way to spend Mexican Independence Day, says Clyde, by watching Canelo win. He says, do you think Puerto Ricans will get behind Berlanga like that? Obviously he's from New York. He does rep Puerto Rico hard, but he wasn't born there. I don't know if he'll get the same love. I think he might get the Danny Garcia type love, right?
I'm about to say that. I was gonna say he gets a little bit more love than Danny, but not as much as Xander, and of course nowhere near Tito, Miguel Cotto. But I'm gonna say C+ level support, man. The Puerto Ricans just they just want to party, man. They just want to drink. They want to drink with their Mexican friends, so they'll turn up. They'll turn up.
All right. Well, we'll keep you guys posted on that. I'm sure we'll have something finalized by next week. And let me see if I can go ahead and click on this. Let's go ahead and move on, Chris, because your boy Big Turkey Al-Sheikh continues to make moves, now partnering with Top Rank and Golden Boy Riyadh season. So we've heard the rumors that he was trying to buy out all the big promotional companies. Not sure if that was accurate or not. I know Oscar De La Hoya made a video last week saying it's not true, at least not in regard to Golden Boy. They haven't talked to us. They haven't made us any offers. So this kind of makes sense, partnership. What I hope that we get out of this is hopefully that 5-on-5 like we saw with Queensberry and Matchroom. If we can get some 5-on-5s, they've been talking about that. Oscar and Bob Arum, talking about some names that can potentially, face each other. If we can get a 5-on-5 with these different promotional companies, I think that's best case scenario for fans. As I stated before on this podcast, those 5-on-5s usually are 50-50 fights. They're pretty even fights. None of the promoters want to lose, so they're sending some of their best names out there. So that's what I'm hoping we get out of this. We will have to wait and see what moves Big Turk continues to make. He said he wants to unify all the major promotional companies. I think he got what, 4 now or 5? How many he got now?
I think 4 or 5, and it's the major 6. Yeah, Big Turk is like Thanos, man. He's collecting these rings, like putting them on his hand. Hey, collect them all, make everybody fight each other. That's probably like the best thing that could have happened to boxing. But yeah, man. After you mentioned the 5-on-5, Gio, like I don't think anybody is afraid to do this 5-on-5. He can't do worse than Eddie Hearns. He cannot do worse, man. He made it easy for everybody, man. Even if he take 1 or 2 losses, cannot do worse than Eddie Hearns. So yeah, shout out to Turk. Turkey, man, putting everybody together again. Everybody says the Oscars. Everybody always says like, "Oh, we're not working with them." He's cutting into our territory. Hey, as soon as he cuts the check and they see all these zeros, Gio, trust me, man, these promoters will buy in. But yeah, man, again, it's a blessing that that Turkey has come to the sport because he's a true fan and he really does want to give fight fans the fights that we want to see. And hey, that if you can make these promoters work for us, I'm up for it.
Yeah, and let me go ahead. Let me go ahead and see exactly what that means because I think that was recently announced. I'm not even sure exactly what the partnership means. I know Top Rank and Golden Boy made their statements. Kind of vague. We would assume that um, this means a collaboration between said promotional companies, right? I'm gonna go ahead and just read this first couple paragraphs here. This is Top Rank's official statement on this. Riyadh season and Top Rank agree on official partnership. His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh, chairman of the board of directors of the General Entertainment Authority, today announced an official partnership between Riyadh season and Top Rank designed to continue to drive the promotion of world-class boxing events globally. The partnership will use the power and reach of both organizations to elevate the sport. Riyadh season will have a presence across a host of top-ranked bills, both in the build-up and on fight night. Riyadh season will sponsor 12 top-ranked events selected by the promoter during the remainder of this year. So, all I'm hearing is more money, Chris, more money, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thing for boxers.
Again, Joe, and let me just put this into perspective, Joe. Turkey, he's pretty much just a global sports ambassador. So it just so happens that he's such a fan of boxing that he's got, like we said, loads of bags. The Middle East and all the resources they have loads of money, man. They have stupid money. The fact that he's a boxing fan, he could have been a tennis fan, he could have been a golf fan, he could have been any other sport fan, but the fact that it's boxing, that he's a fan of that he wants to put money into the sport, and he's taking everybody over there to Saudi Arabia, dude, it's a blessing to the sport. Again, we've had, like you said, we've had pettiness, we've had egos between promoters for decades, and sometimes you get these fights, sometimes you don't. So the fact that he's got them all working together because money talks is good news for boxing. So, man, let's just put pressure again on some of these other, fighters. You guys know their names. We gotta make these fights happen. And again, money talks. We saw it with Tyson Fury or Alexander Usyk. They'll fight. Everybody's there to fight if the money's right.
Yeah, and it says right here, this last paragraph, it will now look to expand its reach into the U.S. market with its first ever event overseas on August 3rd when Terence Crawford and Israel Madrimov go head-to-head for the WBA and WBO interim world super welterweight title at the BMO Stadium in Los Angeles. Obviously, Turkey has been helping promote that event. This man right here, one of your favorite fighters. I don't want to say your favorite fighter, right? But Terence Crawford, are you excited for this fight? I kind of gave my opinion on this last week or in the last couple weeks. How excited are you about this event? Headlined by Crawford and Madrimov here in LA, around the corner.
Yeah, again, it's obviously on paper, that one guy has much more experience than the other. Geo, we know this. It's not a shocker, and of course, we know one is favored over the other. We know one has more accolades and more names to his resume, more experience, all of the above. I'm going to be honest and say I'm excited for Terence Crawford. Even though he's up in his 30s, I think he's one of the very best pound for pound. We don't have a lot of years of him the same way we don't have a lot of years of Canelo. So I'm excited for that. And again, this is boxing. Madrimov, he's a not a whole lot of fights. I think 10, 11 fights. But he's a solid dude, good dude, good fundamentals. He's got some good power. I'm a little bit excited, I'm not gonna lie and say I'm 100% excited, thinking it's gonna be competitive, but I'm excited enough where something can happen. Again, Madrigal, I just seen him 3 hours ago. Went over to Diaz Brothers boxing gym. He looks confident. He looks big. We'll upload those videos after the podcast, so you guys can take a look how he's looking. He looks confident, strong, in shape. And again, he's 29 years old. Terrence Crawford is, what, 36, 37? He's up there. So again, even though Terrence prepares, 100%, the same way Floyd Mayweather prepared even in his late 30s, age is all the time. It's all the time. It's going to catch up to every single one of us. So, we already know that Terrence can handle, younger, bigger guys, but you never know. You never know with boxing. One punch can change everything. So, yeah, man, I'm gonna say 7.5 out of 10 excitement level. What about you?
Well, we kind of looked at the fights. I think last time we were on here. To me, one-sided fights. I know a lot of people are hyping this up. There's some good names on there, but just going down the list, Crawford, Madrimov. Crawford is supposed to win that. Andy Ruiz versus the cheater, Gerald Big Baby Miller, who's been popped like 3-4 times for PEDs. Not sure why he keeps getting these opportunities, but I think Andy should win that fight. Jared Anderson versus Martin Bakole. I'm hearing a lot about this fight, and they're saying that this is supposed to be a real test for Anderson. So I'm looking forward to that one. Pitbull Cruz versus Jose Valenzuela. This is supposed to be a good one as well. Morel versus, I can't even say that. Morel's going to win that. Andy Cruz is going to win that one. And Ziyad Almayub Zizzo was actually on that too. I'm not sure if he's still training with Buddy McGurr, but I used to see him over there at that gym. I'm sure he's favored in that fight. So to me, a lot of one-sided fights with a couple of them that are supposed to be 50-50s. I'm not too excited about this one, Chris. I'm hearing the tickets are going for a lot. I'm not sure if you've checked. I'm sure they're expensive, but people are hyping this up, but excitement level, I'm probably like at a 5. Now if that Virgil Ortiz Tim Tszyu fight would have been on there, I mean, with that gets it closer to a 10.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, for the main event, I'm 7.5 out of 10. Overall for the card, like you said, there's some names that are, you can tell who's going to win. But for the most part, I am excited about some of the names. Andrew Ruiz. I'm excited about Isaac Pitbull Cruz, of course. Jose Valenzuela. That one's probably going to, take the night. So overall for the event, I'm probably like 8.5 out of 10. So I'm excited for it. I haven't seen the ticket prices. I might have to get one because, sometimes we get credentials, sometimes we don't. So when we don't, we got to buy tickets. So I want to be in that building. I want to see what happens. Of course, the main event, Terrence Crawford versus Madrimov. Hey, they're looking confident over there with Joel Diaz. Again, it's a different animal once you're in there with Terrence Crawford, but they're looking confident. They probably feel good with the size of their fighter and the freshness of their fighter. And again, it's a whole different ballgame when you're finally in there with somebody like Bud. But yeah, man, I'm overall I'm excited for this fight. And again, it's Turki Alashik coming to LA, so he's putting his foot down here in the States.
Blood Raven says that's an amazing card. What the heck are you guys talking about? I mean,
hey, I'm excited. Gio may not be as excited, but he's got high standards, man. Yeah, let's not knock Gio off of that. He just wants the best for the sport, but I'm excited. 8.5, 8.7 out of 10, man. Like you said, if Virgil was in this, 10 out of 10.
I mean, hey, if you can show me a 50-50 fight on this card, then I will change my mind. But hey, the card is right there.
I was gonna say when Virgil and Tim Tszyu were on this card, I was like, hey, it's looking like them Don King days. I mean, that's the closest we've ever gotten in the last 10 years to a Don King kind of card. If you guys go back and see the Don King card, you're like, man, this guy was stealing money for these fighters, man. So what? If he's putting those fights, I'm for it. But again, it's a very good card.
Yeah, I think there's certain names on there that make people think it's a great card. I'm gonna say Andy Ruiz, maybe Pitbull Cruz, but we just had a great card. What was it? Was it this year? I don't even remember when it was. It was recent, right? That 5-on-5 that I mentioned. The Queensberry against Matchroom. All those fights are 50-50 fights. So, I mean, just because you don't recognize the names, that doesn't make them quote unquote amazing. I'm sure you guys are reading some of these names and saying, "Oh, Andy Ruiz." Yeah, the guy hasn't fought in 3 years.
I was just gonna say that, Gio, that 5-on-5, probably the most competitive card on paper, but not everybody recognizes the names. I think this card more people know the Andy Ruiz, people know
I don't know what happened. They should just kick me out. I'll put end stream and